Corporate counsel are increasingly we're expecting some guidance, some critical guidance to be issued. I think that corporate counsel are concerned about the state of corporate counsel are increasingly looking to gain greater control of a much more challenging regulatory environment. And when ACC recently issued a Chief Legal Officer survey, the results of which were just discussed in 2011, what we saw is that as the #1 priority and pressing concern, corporate counsel reported that expanding regulations and getting their hands around company activities related to keeping those activities in compliance with law was the #1 pressing thing on their mind. How General Counsel reacted to that, however, was to look to take greater control of the management of their legal issues, in many cases adding positions to staff. We saw that more General Counsel than we had in the prior survey projected that they would be adding positions to staff in order to get their hands around those challenges and make sure that their staff are the ones that are in the position to best serve the corporation, provide that critical advice regarding regulatory challenges around the world. We also saw, with respect to corporate counsel, that there was an uptick in terms of the Chief Compliance Officer or Compliance Director role. And what we saw is that in any case, whether it was a position that reported directly to the CEO or came as a direct report to the General Counsel, there was always a very close symbiotic relationship between that compliance officer and the work of the Office of General Counsel. So we see that is the way that corporate counsel have been responding to bring more work in-house so that they can get their arms around all those regulatory challenges and work proactively with their compliance officer in order to serve the company well. I think in the area of the FCPA, we're expecting some guidance, some critical guidance to be issued within the next 3 to 6 months. We anticipate that boards and the C-suite will want to have that new guidance reflected and incorporated into revised and updated compliance systems and programs. We're also expecting that the SEC has suggested and made clear that in the area of whistleblowers, they have received a lot of tips, and we expect that they will be looking to make some unfortunate organization an example. So we see in the area of whistleblower and compliance systems that companies and boards of directors will want to be vigilant about making sure that they have internal investigations as appropriate. In addition to that, we're also expecting that with respect to the U.S. sentencing guidelines, we're hearing that those will be substantially revamped or in the process of being substantially re-examined. And we know that in order for corporations to best protect themselves from some of the substantial liability that would attach to them, that they need to demonstrate proactive compliance programs. And thus, it takes us back to compliance as being one of the top issues that will be on everyone's minds as we move into 2013. I think that corporate counsel are concerned about the state of the economy worldwide. Looking at some of the challenges that have been raised with respect to LIBOR, we think that we're just at the tipping point in terms of some of the challenges and potential liabilities that may be surfacing in the financial sector related to LIBOR and charges that banks were inappropriately setting interest rates. So we see that as something that is approaching a tipping point as an issue. In addition to that, the crisis in Europe around their economies will continue to be of concern to corporate counsel who represent businesses that have substantial investments there worldwide. employee bases that would include staff that are based in Europe. So we see that as another challenge that corporate counsel will be increasingly keeping their eye on. Here in the United States, which impacts operations outside of the United States, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and the fact that we're still waiting on the DOJ to issue critical guidance in that area. These are three things that become top of mind. In addition, if we look within the legal profession as a sector, we see that there have been a number of major law firms that have gone bankrupt or had reorganizations and substantial economic challenges as well. That creates a disruption to the service that's provided to the corporate client, and thus becomes just another issue that corporate legal counsel have to manage and in-house counsel have to keep their eyes on. We have a robust international presence. 34 nations are represented at our annual conference. We have a variety of international offerings, some of which were live broadcasts via the web, so that members all over the world would have an opportunity to experience some of the annual meeting. In addition to that, we're delighted that there are more in-house counsel from our membership that are represented. In fact, a full 1,000 more than last year. And in the area of our legal service providers, which are essential as partners with ACC in service of in-house counsel, we've seen an uptick and an increase in the number that are here at our exhibit hall and through our trade show. Non-attendees, first of all, missed out on a fabulous program that took place over our lunch, in that ACC's Chief Legal Strategist Amar Sarwal took an opportunity to interview Lauren Stevens. Lauren was formerly Vice President and Associate General Counsel at GlaxoSmithKline, and at GSK, Laura was targeted and taken on a roller coaster ride through the Department of Justice that alleged that indicted her and alleged criminal activity on her part in terms of having been involved in false statements being provided to the Food and Drug Administration related to an investigation that was being undertaken of GSK and some of their drug policies and prescription drugs, and allegations that had been made allegedly about those prescription drugs. And Laura's life was interrupted. She told her story in very real ways that the in-house counsel in the audience could imagine and project themselves being in Laura's position and representing the best interests of their company, looking to identify information that was responsive and turn it over in requests from the Department of Justice. But Laura was the victim of overzealous prosecutors, and they ended up criminally indicting her, and she ended up having to be exonerated twice before she was able to move on with her life. And so I think that story about how in-house counsel are increasingly becoming targets of government investigations and potentially being charged and fortunately for Laura, not held criminally liable, but certainly Laura faced the possibility of 60 years in prison. And we're delighted that Laura was completely exonerated of any wrongdoing, but the years of her life between 2004 and 2010, when she was exonerated, were quite a compelling story that we believe attendees had the benefit of hearing.